Stephen A. Smith got into some heat because he decided to go on Fox News and make some ludicrous comments about, and I'm paraphrasing here and I'll play the clip, of somehow Trump is a victim of the criminal justice system. Somehow black Trump supporters could relate to him because of indictments and mugshots and whatever the case may be. He got a lot of heat from it, including from the NAACP. They actually retweeted what he said and called him out. Stephen A. Smith is a sports commentator on ESPN, but lately he's been delving into political talk. Maybe he's done it before, but when you go on Fox News to talk about black voters and Trump, you're framing yourself in a particular kind of lane.
Right.
He's gotten a lot of backlash, rightfully so. And, you know, I think for me, what really disgusted me about Stephen A. Smith's comments about Trump and the criminal justice system, and he was kind of, and I'm paraphrasing here, we'll play the clip again, saying that the system is somehow, being used against him or whatever the case may be. This month, I was saying this yesterday, marks 35 years since the Central Park Five were accused of rape and assault. They were wrongfully accused. They were wrongfully incarcerated. And Trump called for their execution.
Yeah. In a full-page ad.
In a full-page ad in the New York Times. Called for their execution. Those young men, children, they were the victim of the criminal justice system.
Right.
And Trump enacted hell on those young children. So for Stephen A. Smith to say that, I thought it was moronic and disrespectful. And I think of Yusef Salaam, who was just elected to city council in the district that he was accused of assaulting a woman. And he's talked about, he's been on my show before, Yusef Salaam.
Yeah, I met him.
He's talked.
Very nice.
Amazing
All
guy.
This, I met all of them actually, and they're all amazing. Yeah.
Incredible survivors and warriors, and I can't imagine what it was like to go through that. And as you know, on this show, every Wednesday, I talk to somebody who's been wrongfully convicted.
Yeah.
For Stephen A. Smith to even make that kind of that Trump is the victim, Trump who, if you and I were in that system and we violated gag orders incessantly, he's out. I mean, all these charges.
Yeah.
It's just so vile. But again, the 35th anniversary this month of what those children went through in New York City.
Yeah.
And Trump took out money. And it wasn't just the New York Times. It was other papers as well. Took out money calling for their execution. That was just really bizarre of Stephen A. Smith to say that and to say it on Fox News. And he works in media. He has to know.
Yeah, you have to. You have to
know. And out of respect for the Central Park Five, and also, Trump has doubled down.
Yeah, he never apologized. No.
Just a few years ago, he refused to say that they were innocent when a New York Supreme Court exonerated them.
Yep.
When Bloomberg reportedly didn't allow them to get their settlement, and Mayor de Blasio of New York, they made sure they got their settlement. I mean, the way that Trump enacted hell on those black children. And for you to say that, Stephen A. Smith, really terrible. But nonetheless, he's issued some kind of apology. Listen to this.
Quite a few folks were put off, if not flat out offended, after my words were interpreted as associating support for Trump from the black community with all the legal issues he's facing. For that, I sincerely apologize. To be clear, my words were misconstrued. I'm stating right here for the record that my words were taken out of context, misrepresenting and depicting me in a way I found every bit as insulting and disrespectful as folks in Black America evidently felt about what they thought I said. But I'll own it anyway. Because please know that I know the buck stops with me. I'm in the communication business. I've been here for 30 years, so regardless of whatever interpretation that accompanies any words coming out of my mouth, the responsibility ultimately lies with me first and foremost before anybody else. I've always felt that way. I still do. I always will. Period. Blacks who refuse to support Trump are aware of his history of issues. And we'll never forget how Trump claimed Obama, the nation's first black president, wasn't even qualified to hold office because he was born in Kenya, although Trump recanted the statement during his 2016 campaign run for the presidency. Yet Trump's dissenters were not the topic of discussion when I was talking to Hannity. The support he appears to be receiving in the polls was what was being discussed. 5 polls, count them, 5. Emerson, NBC News, Daily Kos, New York Times, and Rasmussen, all big national polls, had Trump leading over the last few weeks.
One quick thing there. He said that Trump recanted his racist, vile birther conspiracy theory. That is a little bit generous to say he recanted. Yeah. He stopped talking about it, and then he blamed Hillary Clinton for that birther lie even coming out. But he never apologized for it.
Yeah.
So if that was your slick language that was bizarre. That was bizarre. So he goes on and tries to explain the polls, and I've covered the polls incessantly. The polls said Obama was bombing with the black vote. I mean, the polls were saying that Reagan was getting the black vote. I mean, this happens every single election cycle. Yeah. But in this apology, he's acting like his words have been misconstrued. His words have been twisted, that people took it out of context. Well, let's listen briefly to what he said with Sean Hannity on Fox News. Listen to this.
But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through, he wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures. We've seen that happen throughout society. So no matter what race, what ethnicity you may emanate from, we relate to you when you're suffering like that because we know we have. And that's what he articulated.
Yeah.
He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. The court system being exercised against him. Black folks can relate to that. So black folks can relate to a rich white guy with tons of indictments who 91. Not 91, who has not had bond revoked, who is not who is out free to do whatever he wants to do, who is violating gag orders. So Stephen A. Smith, your apology was bullshit.
Yeah.
You tried to act like somebody else twisted your words and somebody else. Now you're the victim. What you said was ahistorical. It was offensive. And as I said on The View, and I'm not saying this is him, but I'll just repeat what I said on The View, that there are some random celebrities who know that being contrarian can get them a headline on Fox News. And then Sarah Haynes and Sonny Halston added, back to the grift.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's the case for him. He has tons of money, but nobody misconstrued what you said.
No, come on.
You equated what Trump is going, Trump in the justice system. You equated that black folks can relate.
Yeah. And you said he wasn't lying.
Right. He was telling the truth.
He was telling the truth. And he was pushing back on people who had pushed back on what Trump said, which was
Right.
racist. And he's
Right.
defending Trump's racist commentary. That was nothing to do about voters. That was Trump's racist commentaries that he volunteered a defense of.
That wasn't an apology, man. That was you're mad you got dragged. You're mad you were held accountable. Because they wouldn't have had you on the show if you were going to hold Trump accountable. Sean Hannity wouldn't want that.
Right.
If you were going to be Stephen A. Smith and say, black folks can't relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Black folks are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted.
Mm.
Black folks can't relate to that. Poor folks can't relate to that because when you got money, you can get through the criminal justice system. That he is in any way putting that narrative out there that this is a man running for president of the United States who is accused of inciting an insurrection, who is trying to get back in office because he wants to stay out of jail, in my opinion. And you're saying that's relatable. Full stop. That's just completely foolish.
Yeah.
And you give a whack-ass apology and bring Obama into it.
Why is Obama in it?
He recanted.
Did not.
Reese Colbert.
I mean, some of the elements of a good apology were there. I do think you take accountability. There wasn't really accountability, though, for what you said. You were trying to take accountability for the backlash without taking accountability for what you said. The words that came out of your mouth were not all fucking stupid. And everybody is just so fucking stupid, and we don't know how to process the words that came out of your mouth. We were not the words that we reacted to were not a reaction to whether or not X number of Black people support Trump. Okay, that's debatable, whatever. But when you attach criminality in any way, identifying with, having an affinity for, making excuses for criminality with Black people, that's actually dangerous. That is what my issue is with what he said. I don't care if he's a Trump supporter. He probably is. I don't care if he's a conservative. He probably is. What he has to understand. I don't believe that he's a stupid person. I don't throw around intelligence like other people do. But I don't believe that he's a stupid person. I believe that he has enough sense to process the fact that when a Donald Trump or a Fox News host says that Black people can relate to Trump because of his criminal prosecutions, that's not them saying because Black people have a history of being persecuted, have a history of being lynched, have a history of stop and frisk, a not so distant history. They're not saying that the criminal justice system has been weaponized against Black people. In fact, the policies of the Republican Party is to strip away the civil rights gains that we've made in having things like Miranda rights and having other rights that we have to try to minimize the institutionalized racism in our criminal justice system. So these people are not speaking from a lens of, oh, look at all these Black people who've been persecuted should be able to relate. No, that's not the lens which they're speaking with. Donald Trump is fucking guilty, and he knows that. He knows that he's a criminal. He knows that he's a mob boss. So when he's talking about himself in relation to others, he's saying, well, aren't y'all criminals? Don't y'all get it? That's what he's saying. So
exactly.
Even if, of course,
you're
Black
a criminal
people,
too. Oh my God.
Of
Jesus.
course, Black people understand what persecution looks like. Of course, Black people understand what unjust prosecution looks like. Of course, Black people understand what a witch hunt looks like. That's not this. Because we understand those things, because of our history of those things, as you laid out, the history of Donald Trump calling for the execution of teenage boys that were actually innocent
And
because we
still
do
doubling down.
and
And
still doubling down.
and has never said.
No, never said. And
And one is on the city council right now.
mind you, Donald Trump had the least amount of clemency actions in recent presidential
Yes.
history.
Yes.
A lot
Good
of people
point.
don't
Good
understand it
point.
because he pardoned Kodak Black or he pardoned motherfucking Lil Wayne. Okay, that was the fewest amount of clemency actions. So this is a person who's not even serious about criminal justice reform. He's actually obstructed criminal justice reform, despite taking credit for it. So you cannot look at a person with that lens making a statement about Black people can relate to me as a person who has the capacity and is willing to understand the persecution and the history of that in Black America, in America with Black people. These people believe that 100% of the disparities that we see in the way that Black people are convicted, sentenced to death, arrested, they believe that that is due to our inherent criminality. That's
That's why
what
you
they
have narratives
believe.
like black on black crime.
Yes.
When no one talks about white on white crime, that's why you have those kind of narratives, because they want to frame us as being savage and being uncontrollable, and there's this justice system and all we do is hurt each other. When that happens, really it's poverty on poverty crime, first of all, but it
Hello.
happens in every other community. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, Donald Trump launched his campaign talking about Mexicans. They're bringing drugs, they're rapists. Some of them, I guess, are good people. He tell Black people, what the hell do you have to lose? This person looks down on us. He doesn't see us as human beings, I would argue. He's a fucking racist. So you can't look at his history and the lens with which he's making these statements about how Black people can relate and then turn around and say he's not wrong. He's not lying. Actually, he fucking is. Because Black people, again, through his lens, are not inherently criminal. Black people want safe communities. Black people don't want to be surrounded by criminals any more than anybody else does. Okay?
Absolutely. But Reese, let me ask you though, this is not a Herschel Walker.
Right.
Uh, what do you think his end game is? That's what like you said, he appears to be a smart guy. Why do you?
Yeah.
I mean, this was so. This is something that you would see Diamond and Silk say, and I know one of them had passed away. Rest in peace. But what? Why do you think he said this? He's a smarter guy. Why the f would you say something so ludicrous?
Well, there's levels of smart, right? I mean, I think that people can be smart in certain topics, and then other topics they're not equipped. I don't think that Stephen A performed the kind of analysis that we just went through. I don't think that he took it a step further to think of, well, what does Trump really mean when he's saying that? What does he mean? You trying to make it seem like he means that Black people being persecuted. You can't possibly believe that, but maybe you do because you haven't been paying attention. But you have to think a little bit deeper when you're giving political analysis. Maybe now when you talk about shooting balls and dribbles or whatever, I'm not trying to downplay that, but I'm just saying that what you see is what you get when it comes to sports. But with politics, you really have to think a little bit deeper. And I don't think that he's equipped. He's shown that he's not equipped to really offer commentary on these types of issues. But another thing I think it shows is I think that it shows that celebrities, famous people, people with platforms are just as susceptible to this right wing disinformation, misinformation network that I've been talking about for years. If you look at a lot of these celebrities that parrot these Trump talking points, they're reposting right wing accounts. And I'm like, wait a minute, do you know you just posted a white supremacist right now? Did you know that? They are attracted to these narratives because of maybe this belief that, oh, we need to do something about immigration. I don't know why Stephen A. Smith immigration would be a hill for him to die on. I don't know. Because what does that make?
But wait, Reese,
Yeah.
one thing though. That could be true. And
Mm-hmm.
you're giving him grace saying that he could have been impacted by misinformation and disinformation. But you've been on cable news a lot, as have
Mm-hmm.
I. For those that don't know, a producer will contact you and a producer will say, "Here's what we're going to talk about,"
Yeah.
and they even sometimes give you the questions in advance, or at
Mm-hmm.
least a general of how the questions would go. For someone as famous as Stephen A. Smith, I'm sure he got a lot more detail than you and I even get before we
Right.
go on cable
Right.
news. So he had time to think about this.
Yeah.
So is it really misinformation, or was or did he intentionally say this BS because he knew that it would appeal to maybe an audience that he wants?
I think that he believes what he's saying. I do. I don't
Okay.
think that he's being provocative for the sake
Okay.
of like, I don't really believe this, but I know this will get the people going. Like, no, I don't think he's doing that. I do believe that he believes what he's saying. And I believe that he believes what he's saying because he has been subject to the same kinds of narratives. He must watch Fox News. Shit, if you watch Fox News, you're gonna believe what he's saying. If you're on social media, I mean, polling has shown people on social media have a disproportionately negative view of Joe Biden and the Democrats than people who don't get their news from social media, or who don't spend a lot of time on social media. So I do believe that he is impacted. I really do. Now, because he's impacted, he's getting this information and he doesn't have the capacity to process it in a more sophisticated way. And lacking that capacity, he doesn't also have the capacity to say, I ain't the one to really speak on this. Maybe go talk to Roland. Maybe go talk to Clay. Maybe go talk to whoever, Mark Lamont, whoever is of stature that he appreciates. Then this is where we have that combination of an issue. But I do think that he believes what he's saying. And I do think that he believes what he's saying because he's getting the kind of information that I've been talking about is really being driven home in our communities. We're being targeted with. I do believe that. Now there's a profit
Mm.
motive. Be clear. I'm not saying that he doesn't
Yeah.
profit off of it because
Yeah.
you get podcast hits, you get all this free publicity, then you get to have another. It's content. It creates content on top of content on top of content. So he knows he's going to benefit from it. Worst case scenario, he gets dragged and then he gets even more content off of that. People come and they want to see what he has to
And
say.
now he's the free thinker. He left the
Yeah.
plantation.
Yeah.
He's the
Yeah.
independent thinker. He's the one that gets it. And so he'll be able to maybe toe the line of, okay, I could
Mm-hmm.
still kind of be in these other kind of media space, but then I can also capitalize in these media spaces as well, too.
Yep.
It was just factually incorrect,
That's it.
deeply offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And again, marking 35 years since these black children were tortured in New York City,
Mm-hmm. It's
and Trump
indefensible.
calling for their execution. And he's the one,
Who
the
we can
justice
relate
system, what it's
to?
right. He really ask
Yeah.
Yusef Salam that.
Mm.
Ask Corey Wise that. Ask Kevin Richardson that.